After spending the last several months building up U.S. forces off the coast of Venezuela, President Donald Trump now says that he's open to negotiating with Nicolas Maduro, the socialist leader of Venezuela. Now, here's the president speaking just a few days ago while on Air Force One.
Venezuela, sir, you've had a lot of meetings on Venezuela. I know you can't tell us what your next steps will be, but can you say, have you made up your mind on what you'd like to do as far as action for
I
Venezuela?
sort of have made up my mind.
You have.
I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made up my mind.
What do you say to some of your supporters who might not be excited about another foreign campaign?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I can't tell you what it is, but we made a lot of progress with Venezuela in terms of stopping.
Perhaps the president is growing concerned that any military action to remove Maduro might lead to the kind of disaster that we witnessed in Iraq. Or maybe, just maybe, Trump likes keeping his options open until the last possible moment. Now, the problem with that is that with so many of our U.S. military assets off the coast of Venezuela for so long, Maduro has time to disperse his forces and prepare for an insurgency against any U.S. military operation. To help us navigate these troubled geopolitical waters, we're bringing in Tony Delgado, who is the CEO of Latino Wall Street and has his finger on the pulse of what's happening in Latin America, as well as how Latin Americans are perceiving this possible ouster of Nicolas Maduro and military action on the part of the United States. Tony, it's good to see you. Now, I do want to just make sure we're clear with people. We're going to talk about different aspects of this, but this is not an operation that's going to look like Iraq per se. From what we're hearing, the president has initiated or at least authorized what we refer to as CIA black ops. It's a black operation, so it's not going to be this very big military onslaught. But I have heard concerns from people, and rightly so, of regime change. It's a phrase that here in America, particularly America Firsters, have become very weary of. So from your perspective, Tony, if the president goes forward with this operation in Venezuela, how will it be perceived?
Well, listen, I want to start off by saying I consider myself an America First conservative, and I think a lot of the reasons why people elected Donald Trump in his first term was his strong stance against the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan. But I do think this is different, and it's different for a lot of different reasons. Number one, this is our neighbors, right? So we're not talking about the Middle East. We're not talking about the Ukraine or Russia or somewhere in some distant continent far away. Venezuela and also Mexico and Latin America in general, these are our neighbors. These should be our trading partners, and a strong Latin America should lead to a strong America. Number two is, Maduro was not duly elected. The people of Venezuela chose the opposition party. And I know closely from friends and business associates, some of who live in Venezuela themselves, that this man was not duly elected. It was a fake election. Everyone who was counting the ballots in each one of the small towns and municipalities in Venezuela, none of them were for Maduro. And then magically Maduro came and did a press conference and declared that he had won the election when everyone in Venezuela knows that he didn't. So I do think that this is different. And I also think that President Trump's approach is different, right? I know that he said, hey, I'm not against invading Venezuela, but in order to create peace, you have to be willing to go to war, right? It's really hard to negotiate from a stance of complete what would you say? Complete timidness and saying there's no way that we'll go in. No, America has the strongest military in the world. The Venezuelan coast is bordering Florida and the rest of the United States. And I do think that this is not going to be a place where we're going to have that many boots on the ground. I think that the United States is going to be able to handle this, like you mentioned, in a black ops way where we're using air and we're using sea and we're using some special forces to come in. And then we're using the strategic military hold of Puerto Rico to help ensure that there is democracy back in Venezuela.
That will be the hard part, right? Because we know how this goes, Tony. You can oust a dictator, an illegitimate leader, but we'll see how the Venezuelan people are allowed to respond and establishing a new government. The criticism I also hear from people who are agree that there's a problem in Venezuela. And as you, I think, rightly note, this is in our own hemisphere. We've ignored the Western Hemisphere for decades at this point with our policy in the Middle East, right? And that was, according to my sources, on purpose. In fact, there were intel chiefs like John Brennan who purposely gave direction to CIA station chiefs not to even gather intelligence on Cuba and Venezuela, and that allowed some of their influence operations here in the United States to proliferate. So a large part of the problem with people who say, well, I'm not for this operation, is that they don't have all the information. There's a counterintelligence aspect to this, right? There's the elections aspect to this. It's not just the illegitimate election in Venezuela, it's how much has Venezuela technology influence aided and abetted in election rigging here in the United States, something we talked about a lot on the show, so we don't have to get into that on this at this moment. But there is a question of drug trafficking and money laundering, right? And some people say, oh, well, this is being inflated in order for Trump to go in and get the oil in Venezuela. That's what I'm hearing from some of the progressives that I talk to, right? Quote, unquote, progressives. But that is what, because they say this is George W. Bush 2.0. Tony, how bad is the drug issue as it relates to Venezuela, and what kind of a threat is it to the United States?
Well, listen, I think fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction here in the United States. We've seen it destroy our cities, destroy our communities, destroy our sons and daughters. So there's no one that's going to be a bigger proponent for stopping these dangerous drugs from entering the country than me. I mean, I would compare it to anthrax or any other chemical weapon, right? This is a chemical weapon that is killing many, many young Americans and destroying lives. So I do think that it should be a priority to stop this from coming in at the border. And I do think that Venezuela, they're not the number one perpetrator of bringing in drugs, right? A lot of that stuff does come across the Mexican border. A lot of that stuff does come from Colombia, right? But Venezuela is a place of lawlessness, right? You have a anti-American regime in there, and there's no doubt that there are cartels and gangs in Venezuela. And actually, the Venezuelan refugees, many of them have come to the United States, and we hope that it's the good ones that come to the United States, but the ones that are not able to get into the U.S. Have come into other places in Latin America, like Peru, where my wife is from, and the Venezuelan gangs that are in Peru are destroying some of those communities. So we do have to be very careful with Venezuela. There's no doubt that the cartels and the gangs that are in that region are dangerous. And I do think that it will be a financial, just from a Wall Street perspective, I think it would be a financial strategic move to have a pro-American regime in Venezuela, because they could make a great trading partner for oil.
It is, and I'm hesitant to talk about the economic benefit of this again, because the perception is, in lieu of the administration really explaining the reason there for this operation on Venezuela, some people do see this as an opportunity, as an oil grab, and I understand that perception in lieu of any kind of real explanation to the American people. And I was just having this conversation this week in an episode that will air on another network next week. Why they believe this is bad, because they think that's all it's about. So I do believe that the administration needs to do a better job in explaining why focus on Venezuela, why the pivot to the Western Hemisphere, because there is a lot at play here. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. This is a conversation that will be ongoing. It sounds like there is something that could happen in the next couple of weeks, and we'll hope you'll come back and help us understand, the post perception as well. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us, Tony Delgado.
Thank you for having me on.